Our egos fight against this awakening process. So, we're going to talk about 5 signs that we might be noticing inside of ourselves if in fact our ego is trying to fight against this spiritual awakening process. So what's the intention of the ego? Well, God has blessed us with this wonderful ego so that we can protect ourselves from danger and from threats. And on this journey, if we have trauma in the body and the mind that we've experienced in the psyche, then the ego tends to use that past experience of pain, project it onto others and try and protect us from that in the future. But in fact, in this instance, it doesn't protect us, it actually damages us and ruins our relationships. But this seems to be a necessary part of the journey. We're going to talk about 5 other things that it does to stop us from moving further on the journey, and in fact to try and make us doubt it. I don't believe the ego to be evil. My feeling is we must integrate it, not reject it, because it's part of us, and by rejecting it we therefore reject ourselves, isn't it? Because it's an aspect of me. So I don't see it to be evil, but there does seem to be this intention of it to stop us going down this path. My only feeling is, and it doesn't have consciousness of its own, but my only feeling is it stops us going down that path because it knows that it will be the end of it. If we integrate the ego and then have a healthy relationship with it, it doesn't have any power. And so this is my feeling as to why it does this. So it can keep its power, but we'll dive into these. The first thing that the ego does, and we'll notice this inside of ourselves, to fight this awakening journey is to make us put off doing our practices. Now I know at the start of the journey the hardest thing to do is to cultivate the discipline to actually do the practices, and everybody that's beginning to take up some practices will also know that. It's the hardest thing to do, is to create that structure around it. And if you don't have any structure and you want some, then down below you're more than welcome to sign up for the free breathing practice. It won't take you all the way, but it'll be a great way to introduce some prana into the system. There's a free community for awakening souls down below. If you're going through an awakening process and you don't know what's going on, you're more than welcome to share to your heart's content in there. There's some really great people in there and some good discussions as well with quite a lot of depth, which I enjoy reading. And finally, there's the one-to-one coaching that you can sign up for. It's free to apply. The coaching isn't free, but the application form you can find down below. Back to the video. We put off our practices, isn't it? And that's the hardest thing to do, is create discipline and structure with these practices, especially at the start. And the ego knows that this is the end for it, and it knows that it will become integrated into the feeling of who we are when we do our yoga. That's what yoga means, union. And it will unify the ego with the feeling of who we are, the fullness of who we are, and therefore the ego fights us by saying, oh, just do them later. And then do we do them? Well, sometimes we do, but most of the time, no, we don't. We wait until the next day. But then the ego's got hold of us, hasn't it? And we're a bit more shaky than the day before. And this is why we do our practices daily, because it's so necessary, because the ego will put up a fight. The second thing, and this may just be for guys, I don't know, but I'm going to share it because it's part of my journey. Second thing, the ego will project fear into the future about how we'll be. For example, if I used to be scared that I'd never be able to get girls if I became this spiritual person, and it doesn't actually make sense in retrospect, but at the time it was real for me, you know. It's like, oh God, well, nobody's going to like me if I'm all nicey-nicey. But in time we begin to see that that's a very limited perspective of the yogic journey, and in fact, by diving deeper into ourselves, we find it easier to connect with the opposite sex. I always used to be really afraid of them, and I'm sure people will resonate with that. I say them, women. But with this journey, I'm now quite confident with it, and in fact connect better through my emotions and that emotional body and that feeling, that sensitivity that's within me. They call it a gentle man for a reason, isn't it? We become more gentle, more kind, and that doesn't make us less sexy. In fact, to the right woman, it makes us more. So that's the second thing. The mind will be scared and will project fears into the future that, oh, we're not going to be able to find a woman anymore or something. I mock it a bit because it's an old version of me and I see it in my past, and it's like, well, that's not true. I'm proof. I have a girlfriend now, so it's not true. 3, the third thing the ego will do to try and stop us to try and fight this awakening process inside of ourselves, it will worry about being judged. It will convince you that you will be judged for this path, and whilst there is some truth in that, because of course people are going to judge you, they're always going to judge you, but please do not be confused. They were already judging you, and now they just have a different avenue of doing it. And to be honest with you, are these the sort of people that you really want to be hanging around with? Well, at the start of the journey, maybe, because we're not so confident in ourselves, isn't it? And we're a little bit codependent usually, and we're a little bit worried, oh, I'm going to be alone kind of thing. And whilst that is true again, for part of this journey, it's okay to take some alone time to really understand yourself. If you can't understand, we can't understand ourselves, how can we expect another person to understand us? And even that, it's not their job to understand us anyway. But other people may judge you. That is true. But the deeper we go into our yoga and the longer time we spend doing this work, the better we feel. And then the better we feel, the less likely we are to really care what other people think. Why? Because I feel so great inside. All right, not all the time, but most of the time there's this wonderful feeling inside thanks to the yogic practices that we do. And thanks to that deep connection and unification process, integration process that we've gone through. There's this wonderful feeling. And I'm not going to lose that for somebody's judgment of me. I'm just going to laugh at them because it says a lot more about them than it does us, isn't it? It says there's a nasty side to you, or there's still a bit of judgment in you, and that's all right. They've got their own path, but I've got mine, and I'm not going to allow that negativity to ruin my self-worth, self-esteem. 4, and this is a big one that I notice with people, clients especially, but I've known it in me really deeply, is doubts about the reality of the path. So number 4, the ego will throw doubts in front of us. Oh God, is this even real? Or it will have a really expansive moment and feel really good inside, and then the next moment, because this is the way of things, we pulse, don't we, like we talked about in the last video, we're in a contracted moment and we go, whoa, what was that all about? Is this path even real? Am I even improving? Like, what's going on? And this is the ego, isn't it? And we know we're onto a good thing when the ego brings doubt in, because it shows that the ego's losing power, isn't it? If the ego's doubting and using doubt to get us, it's like what do magicians do? Ace. The ace. No, the Joker card. He pulls the Joker card out. That's the ego's Joker card, it's doubt, isn't it? Because as soon as it's got its claws of doubt into us and we believe it, that's it, it's game over for us. We've believed the Joker card, isn't it? But if it throws doubt and we just witness that doubt and then perhaps recognize, no, I have a bit of, I know things are changing in me. I look back and I recognize things are definitely changing in me. Things are getting better and better and better slowly, but things are getting better and better. It's an upward curve. Then that doubt has no power over us, isn't it? And we know that we're onto a winner, because if the ego's throwing doubt, it's just that Joker card. It's the bluff of the mind. 5, and the final one. Of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. I can't deal with everything, but just another big one, and this one's a big one for me. The 5th sign that your ego is trying to avoid or sort of fight this journey is it will bring blame into the thing. And I know this in me, you know, going down this yogic path, of course, your teacher, whoever that might be, has a very messy job on their hands, because they have to become Kali. Kali is a Hindu goddess, all right? We're not Hindus, but there's just it's a great representation, and she's this goddess with the man's head, bloody head, severed head hanging here, and she's got the sword. She's just cut this man's head off, and sometimes the teacher has to be that, the head being representational of the ego, and Kali being the teacher, chopping the man's ego, woman's ego off the head. And the teacher plays that role, isn't it? And therefore, I know this in me, we can blame our teacher. Oh, you're the reason why my life is like this. Because you've taken me down this rabbit hole that I now can't escape from. Ah, what a blessing that that's happened. But the thing is with blame is we lose all of our power, isn't it? And in blame, we actually stop ourselves from moving forward. Because when I blame somebody else, that's it. It's their fault. Game over. Nothing to do with me. Well, no, nothing to do with me. And I've played this out a lot. And so the key here is to take responsibility, isn't it? Life's led you here for a reason. In fact, we could even say I've led myself to this path for a reason, because I've made a real mess of my mind, maybe. And therefore, that's the ego will bring blame in, won't it, to stop us taking responsibility for the mess that we've made with our minds, maybe. Maybe I'm being insensitive, I don't know, but I know that this is true for me, and I'm sure this will resonate with other people too. So they're the 5 signs. Not all 5, you know, then it's not an exhaustive list, but these are 5 signs that I notice in me, and hopefully they help bring some awareness around what the ego might be doing to stop us from moving further on this path. Have a really lovely evening. I love you all. Namaste.